Pulegoso. 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 Pulegoso is a glass containing numerous bubbles of all sizes, produced by adding bicarbonate of soda, gasoline, or other substances to the melt. The bubbles make the glass semi-opaque and give the surface an irregular texture. Pulegoso is neat, and today we're going to make it in Blender. We'll start with modeling. To make a vase, we're going to, well, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but we're going to start with a cylinder. So just open up Blender and you should be good to go. Good to go. So swap into edit mode and select the top face and delete it with X and select only faces. Bottom face I'm going to inset a couple of times and then I'm not worried about this N-gon anymore. Maybe we poke it just for fun. And for the shape of the vase, just a couple of loop cuts, move some stuff around, and we're going to let Subdivision Surface Modifier do the hard stuff for us. Voila! A vase. One of the rules for rendering glass is that it can't just be a single face. So to produce some thickness, I recommend using the Solidify modifier. It's just not any fun to fuss around with the extra vertices unless you really have a good reason to. And even then I would still recommend using it and just apply the result. Remember, you probably want to bring a new edge up to the top here to smooth out the normal transition. So you've got a vase. It's as easy as that. Obligatory reminder here to follow all of these scale conventions for your work. And that means I do have to change the Solidify modifier here. And would you look at that? The numbers make sense. Who knew that it would work out in a totally logical way if you just plan a little bit from the very beginning? Okay, let's just try to get reasonably close with a shader. And I've got a solution for you that just takes a few nodes. We take object texture coordinates and go to a Voronoi texture. And from there we have a few choices. I mean, a nice quick one is just a math to greater than. The important part is at the end we're going to use a map range node to shift the surface between a couple of different IOR values. Now map range is kind of a funny node, but real quickly, we're going to go from our 0 to 1 range to a couple of different IOR values. So the IOR for glass is 1.5, more or less, depending on the type of glass, but it's 1.5. And in this example, I used 1 because we're trying to recreate the effect of a ray passing through a pocket of air. So I just figured that made the most sense, but maybe something else works for you. Let's look at this with an HDRI. And I think this looks pretty reasonable. If you're using this and it's viewed from a distance, not really the central focus, maybe it's not even fully in focus, I actually recommend this. I mean, it's good stuff. Cheap. Easy. But it's not good enough. We're gonna make the real thing. Get rid of all this. Let's change our vase material real quick and just go to regular glass. And we start by making a small glass bead. I use an icosphere here. It's all triangles anyway, right? Shrink it down. We can get the exact size we need later. Now we're gonna flip the normals on this in edit mode. Select all with A and then Alt plus N and choose flip. And if you throw that same principled glass on it and go into rendered view, you might notice that it is not transparent. Instead it's reflective. This is totally okay and normal. The back face of a glass shader actually usually registers as a glossy bounce. What we're trying to do here is mimic all of the interfaces between glass and air that a real-life photon would encounter traveling through real Pulegoso glass. The ray enters the vase from the outside, bounces out of the glass into an air pocket, back into the glass, and then finally out the other side. When we instance these beads as particles, the normals are already set up to do just that. The last thing we want to do with our bead is to select all the verts and use this panel up here to move everything to the negative side on the y-axis and get it all just on the other side of the origin point. Okay, we're all ready. You can put this icosphere somewhere else. Here's a particle system you can use to distribute this. You got your scale here. I always think it's good to use some scale randomness. If you have this problem of particles escaping around the rim, you can just apply your Solidify modifier. I think there's pretty much always going to be a little funny business here unless you fuss with your settings a lot. This looks pretty good to me. Let's add some magic to the glass. This is really nice. I like this. It's a kind of unassuming piece, but when you catch it just right, it's really good. But I wonder if it's possible to go even further. Look at some of these examples. The glass has this really interesting texture. If we think about what's happening, it's like a little tiny explosion, right? And that is not just creating a bubble, it's doing that by pushing the surrounding material away. I think it must be possible to smooth this away with some extra work or something. It's not always present, but yeah, let's just try to recreate this. If you can afford to crank up the subdivision and use real displacement, this is the time. Don't do this. By the way, this is a bad idea and will destroy your computer. I'll show you the consequences of my actions in just a bit. We'll use a really small noise texture and feed that straight into the displacement node. Now, this one here, this is 1 in Blender units, which is probably meters. You don't want 1 meter. You want like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. Let's look at that. And, well, I guess I could show you how I'd flesh this out. Alright, and let's render. Okay. Let's just try like 3 pixels. That should be way easier, right? Okay, fine. Let's just give it like... Just give it like 1 more. 2 more. Yeah, just do that. Now that's what we were trying to make. This is applicable generally, I think. I mean, you'll probably get better results with real geometry most of the time. GeoNodes could probably overcome a lot of the problems, but what is this, November? Mostly just by being able to exclude certain geometry. But arguably you could just make a duplicate geometry and delete the parts you don't want, and then not show the emitter. But I mean, we're splitting hairs now. My name is Alan. You're at my channel. The sun is going down. My light's going away. There's something people say at the end of their videos. It's like